Hello students. Hello students. Today we will start with our new topic, that is fossil gymnosperms. Fossil gymnosperms. Fossil gymnosperms, we have 3 fossil gymnosperms in syllabus. First fossil plant is Lyginopteris, and second one is Williamsonia, and third is Bentatites. So we will start with the first plant, that is Lyginopteris, which is a fossil plant. So Lyginopteris, it is a fossil gymnosperm, and its systematic position we study that the division is Cycadophyta, class is Spermopsida, and order is Lyginopteridales, family is Lyginopteridaceae, genus is Lyginopteris. Scientist name Williamson, Scott, Binney, Pottany, Oliver, etc. They described Lyginopteris oldhamia completely in detail, and the fossil was obtained in different fragments of the various plant parts that was found in coal balls in the horizons of Lancashire and Yorkshire, and different parts described in different generic names as given. Means their different parts have been recovered from different places and they have been named differently. They have been given botanical name differently. Stem was called as the Dendroxylon oldhamia, and leaves which were recovered from the as fossil records, they were named as Sphenopteris hoganeaceae, and roots they were called as Caloxylon hookeri, and rachis over which the leaves are borne, that is called as the Rachioteris aspera, and pollen bearing organs they were named as Crossotheca hoynegaceae, and seed bearing fronds, do you understand, means larger leaves were called as the fronds. The larger leaf and the compound leaf of the plants, they were treated as a primitive character of the plants. So seed bearing fronds, matlab leaves which bear the seeds, they were called as the Calimatotheca stagnegri, and seeds were called as Laginostoma lomani. Seeds were called as the Laginostoma lomani. These were the names which were given to different parts of the Lyginopteris that was recovered from the different parts or different places of the rocks. Then what are the external features of the plant Lyginopteris? External features. Habit. The plant was constructed from the fragments that had a weak stem. The stem of the plant was weak, and it was a climber or a scrambling type of the plant, and the presence of glandular spines on the stem indicates that the climbing was done with their help. Stem was aerial, radially symmetrical, 2 to 4 cm in diameter, frequently branched, and glandular spines. And the roots, the stem bore the adventitious roots. The roots were found amidst the leaf traces, and probably these were roots that supported the weak stem. Means the roots were just like the tillers or the prop roots which are present in sugarcane or maize, and the roots were about 7 mm in diameter, and rootlets were borne on the roots. And the leaves of the large size up to 0.5 meter long and spirally arranged with 2/5 of the phyllotaxy. Each leaf was bipinnate to tripinnate and was once forked near the base into two halves. The pinna was borne at the right angle to the rachis and were arranged alternatively to each other. I am showing you the diagram here. Here this is the petiole and these are the biforked leaves. These are the central part is the rachis on which the leaves and the leaflet are borne. So this leaf is called as a frond. The larger sized leaves are called as the fronds. And then we are studying the internal structure of the stem. We are studying here I am showing you the diagram of the TS of the stem. TS of stem we are studying here. Here the primary structure of the stem. The TS of stem was circular in its outline. The outermost layer we call as the epidermis. Here is the present epidermis is the outermost layer, and that is comparatively made up of single layered thin walled cells, and the cells are compactly arranged, and that was followed by the anatomy is much similar to that of a monocot or a dicot plant. The single layered epidermis, which is followed by the cortex, which is made up of the parenchymatous cells, and the cells was differentiated into two regions, outer and the inner cortex. Here it is present the cortex and outer cortex that was made up of the network of radially broadened fibrous strands. Fibrous strands were present in the outer cortex, which provide mechanical strength to the weak stem, as it is a climbing type of the stem, and the inner cortex was made up of many layers and made up of the parenchymatous cells only. Next to cortex there was pericycle, and the pericycle was made up of short and thick walled sclerotic cells. Here these are present the sclerotic cells, and which make a sclerotic nest type structure with dark contents. Next to pericycle there were 5 strands of the primary vascular bundles, which are separated from the parenchymatous cells. So we are having epidermis, then outer cortex, inner cortex, then pericycle, and next to pericycle there are the vascular bundles, which are present in 5 strands. Here we can see the 5 strands of the vascular bundles, which are separated from each other by means of the parenchymatous cells, and each vascular bundle, here these are the 5 patches, and each vascular bundle was mesarc, conjoint, collateral and open. And the cells of the phloem, they were small and irregularly arranged. So phloem is small, irregularly arranged. Here it is the primary xylem, and xylem was made up of the tracheids. Tracheids of the protoxylem were spirally thickened, whereas those of the metaxylem, they were scalariform type. And the centripetal metaxylem had multiseriate bordered pits on the radial walls. In the center there was a large pith was present in the center of the stem, and that was made up of the parenchymatous cells, and that had the dark colored thick walled cells, which are scattered here and there in the pith. Then we studied the secondary structure of the stem. In secondary structure, as you have already studied, that periderm is a secondary tissue. The periderm developed next to the 2 cortical layers, and next to it was the pericycle, crust, phloem, and then secondary vascular tissue. Here it is the periderm developed here. The secondary cylinder surrounds the primary xylem and was traversed by the secondary medullary rays and by the passage of leaf traces that originated from the primary xylem strands. And the secondary phloem consisted of regularly arranged larger and smaller cells in the alternate manner. The smaller cells divided to form a vertical row and they later become suberized. And the secondary xylem contained the larger tracheids with multiseriate bordered pits on the radial walls. Then leaf traces. Here we are showing the leaf traces in this diagram. Leaf trace is traversed through the secondary wood, the cortex, and then divided into two in the inner cortex. These two strands again united at the base of the petiole to form the V-shaped leaf traces. The trace then get traversed through the petiole and get branched, and each branch enters into the forked rachis. Then we are studying the VS of the leaf, vertical section of the leaf. Vertical section of the leaf. In vertical section of the leaf, pinnules were covered with the distinct layers of upper and the lower epidermis. Means leaf is covered both on the upper side as well as on the lower side by means of the epidermal layer. The upper epidermis was cutinized and was well preserved, and that leaf was having the well defined palisade and the spongy tissue that make up the mesophyll tissues, and the stomata were restricted to the lower side only, below the level of the epidermis, and the vascular supply was in the form of the collateral strands. And all the parts except the roots, they were covered by numerous stalked glandular outgrowth, and they were more massive and prominent on the petiole and rachis. The glandular outgrowths, they were flask shaped and they may be up to 3 mm high, and they had no any vascular supply, so they were considered as mere emergencies, only the outgrowths, and each outgrowth bore an apical glandular gland that was made up of the secretory cells below. TS of the root. Here we can see TS of the root. We are having the different parts of the TS of roots. You can see in the diagram. TS of the root reveals that the root is circular in outline, and the outermost single layered epidermis it is having, which is thick walled cells are present which form the epidermis of the root, and that was followed by many layered cortex, and the cortex differentiated into outer and inner cortex. The outer layers are 2 to 3 and they had a scanty contents, whereas the inner cortex layers, they were full of dense contents. Means protoplasmic contents are dense in the inner layers of the cortex rather than that of the outer layers, and perhaps the mucilaginous in nature, and this is followed by a single layered endodermis and the pericycle, which were clearly visible. means they were prominently distinguishable. Then stele means vascular tissue. They were 4 to 8 arched and the xylem alternate with the phloem. 4 to 8 stele was present and that was alternating. Xylem and phloem, they were alternating with each other, and the protoxylem was exarch in position and the roots showed a usual secondary growth. Pith was scanty. Then we go for the reproductive structures of the plant. There is no doubt that Lignopteris oldhamia was a heterosporous and heterothallic plant, and it bore the seeds also. Seeds and the ovules were enclosed in the protective structures which are called as the cupules, and the cupules were found to be connected with the fronds, with the leaves, and also bore the capitate glands, confirming their connection with the type species. Then microsporangium, these were the sporangia that were present on the branches of the fronds, and they were discovered under the name Crossotheca by Kidson in 1905. The pinnules of these branches, they become flattened and they bore the peripheral, pendant and elongate sporangia. The microsporangia, they were about 3 mm long and bilocular, and each locule was full of the numerous microspores that arranged 50 to 70 in diameter, and they had a triradiate mark on the outer surface. The sporangia lack the annulus and resemble to those of the cycas. On dehiscence, the microspores were probably liberated by the wind, and no evidence of the pollen tube formation was available in these plants, and in the absence of the pollen tube, the sperms must have been the motile. Here we are showing the diagram of the sporophyll. These are the stamens, and here in this diagram we are showing the stamens and the microsporangia. Then the structure of the ovule. We are studying the structure of the ovule. Structure of the ovule. Oliver and the Scott, that was the name of a scientist. They discovered the ovule in the name of the Laginostoma lomaxi. Laginostoma lomaxi. It was a pedicellate barrel-shaped structure about 5.5 into 4.25 mm in size, and it had a radial symmetry, and the seeds was surrounded by the perianth covering, or the cupule was closed in young condition and opened when mature. The ovule opens when it is mature. This cupule was studded. It was stud means it was covered or protected with the help of a number of glandular outgrowths that was similar to those of the found in stem and the petiole. In the pedicel, a single vascular bundle entered, which further divided into 9 to 10 bundles. Then we study the seed. The seed was of the Cycadian type, and it was covered by a single stout integument showing two different regions, the external sclerotesta and the inner endotesta, and the integuments were fused with the nucellus throughout their length except at the top near the micropylar end, where it formed a canopy, and the canopy surrounded the nucellar cap, and the overhanged the pollen chamber. Means the top portion of the cupule or the ovule contains the pollen chamber. and this canopy was divided into 9 chambers or locules, and they have got the vascular supply, and the nucellus that is present inside the ovule that protruded out through the micropyle in the form of the nucellar beak, and had a hollow pollen chamber called as the laginostomy. The pollen chamber of this plant is called as the laginostomy in the form of inverted bell, and the pollen grains they received in the pollen chamber and perhaps germinated there to liberate the sperms which fertilized the eggs, and in the same way as in case of the living cycads plants. And afterwards the seeds were released from the cupule by the basal abscission mechanism. 1944, Long, the scientist name, he reported the female gametophytes containing several archegonia also. So here is the structure of the ovule. Here this is the cupule, and here these are the glandular outgrowths, and these were divided into 9 parts. Here we are having the nucellar beak. Here is the female gametophyte. This nucellus is protruding out of this cupule in the form of a beak and forming a pollen chamber. The pollens rest here and then they germinate to produce the sperms, and then they effect the fertilization with the egg and they form the seeds finally. So this is all about Williamsonia. Students, in our discussion we have completed about the plant Lyginoteris, and then we will be having a discussion over it. One marks question you may have like that, the different parts of the Lyginoteris, means what is the name of the stem of Lyginoteris, what name is given to the roots, what have been given to the rachis, and what to the pollen bearing organs and to the seeds. These are the 1 mark questions, and in short questions you may be given the explanation of a leaf, or you may be asked about the TS of the stem of the Lyginoteris, or the TS of root, and the structure of the ovule, what it is called in it. So I will be telling you the answers. Cupule is the cup shaped structure which holds the ovule, and ovule is having the integuments which are fused with this outer portion. And what is the name of the ovule? Ovule is called as the Laginostoma lomaxi. It is the name of the ovule of the Lyginoteris. And the seeds are having the outer and the inner coverings, sclerotesta and the endotesta. Stem is known by the Lyginoteris oldhamia, or of this plant. It is known as the dendroxylon. Oldhamia dendroxylon. It is the name of the stem. And leaves Sphenotieris. Roots Calenoxylon hookery. And the seeds are called as the Laginostoma lomaxi. So it is all about the Laginopteris, which we have discussed earlier. Similarly, we will be discussing about the second plant, Williamsonia. It belongs to the family Williamsoniaceae and genus is the Williamsonia. This genus have been named after the name of a discoverer. Its discoverer that was Williamson in 1870, and it was also discovered from the Yorkshire coast and reconstructed the plant, which was earlier named as the Zamia gigas. Zamia gigas. This present name was given later on, but when it was discovered, it was named as the Zamia gigas. And Williamson considered it as a cycad because the studies showed that the flower-like reproductive bodies showed that it is actually belong to Bentitails, and the name Williamsonia gigas was given to it later on. And its other species were also discovered in the Triassic, Jurassic and Cretaceous periods of the Mesozoic era. In India, Professor Birbal Sahni in year 1932, he constructed a new species with the name Williamsonia sweredania, and its fossilized parts, they were recovered and studied by the other workers also. And 5 more species of this Williamsonia were reported from the Raj Mahal Hills of Bihar in India, and these are the Williamsonia scotti, Williamsonia sahani, Williamsonia indica, Williamsonia microceps and Williamsonia stanlensis. So in next lecture we will continue its external features.